Begin transmission. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outer Rim transmission number 40. I'm joined this week by Milton and a special guest, Dominic Jones from the Star Wars Underworld. We'll be talking all about the Book of Boba Fett. All the hype is real. We're also going to be talking this week about some High Republic news as well as some video game update news. So let's just jump right in. How was everybody's New Year? This is the first episode of the new year. Very excited about that. I'll start off with Dominic.
Oh man, my New Year's was super low key. I was at work on New Year's Eve, so I had so much fun just being at work. But the ultimate New Year's or Christmas present is new Star Wars episodes, and Book of Boba's been nicely taking us through this cold winter.
Yeah, right. It's so nice to have Book of Boba Fett out now. Usually we're talking about a prior season of Mandalorian, and here we're right in the middle, the thick of it. Episode 2 we're talking about tonight. So it's great to have it on a Wednesday too. I really liked having it on a Friday, but it's a great way to kind of just break up the week, and one hell of a way to start the year of Star Wars. I'm calling it, with all these series coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be this year of Star Wars. Like there's 40, I swear there's going to be 40 weeks of new Star Wars content this year, which is outrageous when you think about it. It's amazing, but
right.
I also, it's going to be a lot for everybody that does podcasts and blogs and video content. There's going to be so much. We're not going to have any weeks where we're scrounging around for new content.
Yeah, we were doing a couple of the rewatches of some of the films, and it's like, well, we only got through the prequels before we could even, get further than that at this point. So who knows when we're going to be able to pick that up again. But how was your New Year's Eve there, Milton, or your New Year's in general?
Again, I have to agree with Dominic. It was same low key, man. I mean, I spent it with some friends and some family, but honestly, I think with how the world's changing still again with COVID, I think everyone in my family wanted to be low key this year, but it was still a good time. Everyone had a good time together, no drama. Obviously with the new Star Wars series out, I was able to enjoy that, I guess, pre New Year's Eve. So it was good to be getting some of that Star Wars, I guess, fix prior to New Year's. So it was good, man.
Yep. So as we do every week, we talk about our week in Star Wars, and this week, well, yeah, my New Year, I'll chime in. My New Year's was very simple, very short. I even fell asleep before the ball dropped, so that was interesting because that's never happened.
Yeah,
it's like,
you're getting old, man.
You're not wrong, dude.
I was like, let me put my head down. This was a stupid idea. Every time I think about this idea, it ends wrong. It ends bad. It's like, I'm gonna put my head down. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm gonna put my head down, take a little nap. Wake up way after I wanted to at 12:30. Like, oh, well, I guess I'll miss that. Okay. Went back to sleep. But
it's like the moment in a sitcom. You just wake up, you blow one of those party things that goes, and then you can immediately fall back asleep.
Yeah, it's basically the story there. So every week we talk about our Star Wars experiences we might have had this week. I have one that I enjoyed quite a bit. So I ended up watching a little bit of the Star Wars Fanboys movie, and yes. I forget how hilarious that is because it was just, I was cracking up. And I forgot that they actually had some well-known actors in that movie, like Billy D. Williams. I was like, wait, what? And then they had William Shatner in there. It's like, I always had the secret information. I was like, wait, what is going on here? The guy turned to the other side, the Star Wars side. What's he doing?
Yeah, that movie's amazing, and the Shatner cameo is definitely Bill Shatner's greatest work, and I do include Star Trek in that.
Nice.
And it was great seeing Seth Rogen in that scene with the Trekkies, and he's like, "That's a derogatory term," and he's like, pulls out this gadget, and he's like, "You are an asshole" or something. He's calling Han Solo like a little guy. And I'm like, oh my god.
Well, the best Seth Rogen's best scene is later in that movie when he fights himself. Because he's the pimp later in the movie.
Oh,
and
yes.
And he fights the Trekkies, and it's just glorious. Seth Rogen's best work. That movie is a lot of people's best work.
Oh man, so I had a lot of fun. Watching that one. So you guys have anything of note this week? You want to bring up any cool collectible things? Any just little short stories, videos you might have watched?
Well, this week for me, you know me, Chris. Normally, I always try to take an opportunity. If I go somewhere, try to look for like some figures or something. Not having the last couple weeks. However, I have been playing the Force Unleashed video game again.
Oh,
I still have my PlayStation 3 at the house, and that game to me still holds up. And it came out what in 2008 or whatever it was.
yeah.
That game still holds up. It still plays well. I love the story. The story to me, I honestly, from playing that first game, that's in my opinion, that should be a canon story. Like you can tweak some things about it to still make it
Mm-hmm.
canon, because you can talk about the formation of the rebellion, and really that's kind of a perfect story that ties into Rogue One in its own way. Because I guess Force Unleashed could really be the first movie, and then the second movie could be Force Unleashed 2, and then Rogue One could be like the trilogy to end it all.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think there's enough material there to turn that into a movie. I'm not kidding you. Like the story is excellent. So yeah, I've been playing the game, and I'll probably get into the Force Unleashed 2 in a week or two.
Oh heck yeah! It's so funny that you mentioned that. So there's a newer guy I work with at work, and me and he's like my Star Wars contact. I have my Marvel contact at work where we're talking about every Marvel series the day it comes out. Then I have this guy, and we're talking about, and now he's always shouting randomly Star Killer, and I'm like,
Right.
so like, we're always talking about the Force Unleashed for some reason. He said it today, so it's like, what is going on? I was like, dude, like Sam Witwer is in the shape of this guy's in great shape, right? He's got a great physique. He should be Star Killer live action somewhere down the line. Like it's gotta happen. Like he plays Maul so good, voice acting. Like I would love to see him in Star Wars live action.
Yeah, he's yeah, it's sort of like the Ewan McGregor thing. You know, you have to make the Obi-Wan Kenobi show now because Ewan is the right age to do it. And I sort of feel like the same way with Sam. You got to find a way to get
Right.
Star Killer or Galen Merrick or whatever you want to call him into Star Wars, into live action somehow, while Sam is still the right age to play it. And just, you know, even if it's just, you know, a one-off episode in The Mandalorian or Andor or something, just get him in there and have that adventure and give him that experience, because that's a guy who's, you know, just been such a, you know, wonderful Star Wars ambassador over the years, that just as a nice thing to do for Sam Witwer, I think they should do it. And then as an added bonus, it'll be wonderful for everybody who had played those games over the years and has loved them, because those are such fun games.
Yeah,
I think those are the last video games I played before.
I was gonna say I had a feeling that could have been one of the last ones you played. So
yeah, I think it was. I think Force Unleashed 2 was the last one, and I was ready for Force Unleashed 3, and then it didn't happen.
was that ever even like rumored to come out, or it just never even got off the ground?
It was going to happen, but I know there's a lot of transition. I think I forget why it didn't happen, but there's something with like, I think there was some drama within like LucasArts and like Lucasfilm. I guess there was some type of like weird stuff that's political that was going on, and it didn't happen. However, I still have one of the old podcasts saved on my iPod, which is crazy. I still have an iPod. Of Sam Witwer. He did a podcast episode with Christian Harloff back in like 2010. And he talks about what the plot or what the story was going to be with episode 3 of Force Unleashed. And pretty much the story goes, and how this has come from Sam's mouth, and I still have it saved somewhere. He talks about how at the end of the second game, they capture Vader, and then Boba Fett's following them.
Yeah.
And then they're going to put Vader on trial, but then Vader kind of like wanted to be captured and set it up that way. And he just like wrecks the rebellion. Like when he somehow escapes, wrecks the rebellion, and they're pretty much like up Shit's Creek at this point, because they're like, wait a minute, we thought we had him, and then he pulls this like rope-a-dope on us, and then like the story just gets out of hand at that point. And that's pretty much what Sam talks about, how it starts, or where they're going to like take the game to see like, okay, Vader was just playing everybody still. So it was supposed to be a good premise. I would love to see it. If they want to make it to a live action series, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like an ultimate cliffhanger that needs a resolution. It just, the way that second game ends, just left it out there, and it just felt like there was so much potential for so much more. And it just was in that weird phase for LucasArts towards the end of its existence, where things just, they couldn't quite get it together on anything.
Yeah.
And I think there was like with the 1313 game that they were working on, there was a lot of, George was getting involved with that, and he was constantly making them change the ideas based on how he was feeling day to day. And I think I think that was sucking up a lot of resources, and that left Force Unleashed kind of in a place where it wasn't a priority. And then everything changed, and then Disney came along, and all of a sudden the whole infrastructure that they had there for making TV shows and video games had to change because they were refocusing onto films again. And it just got caught up in a weird little unfortunate era for LucasArts, and we missed out on something special, I think.
Yeah, I do. I'm gonna put a pin in this conversation and hopefully remember to pick it back up when we go talking about Jedi Fallen Order 2. Because I think there's a little thing that could happen in that I've been theorizing for literally until years and since I beat the game, the first game. So, but
before we get to Boba Fett, I did finally buy Fallen Order, Chris. I finally bought it, so I'm going to play it eventually.
Wait. So you have a PS4, right?
Yeah, PS4.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just haven't played it yet, so I finally found it for like $10. And I'm going to play it. Yeah.
Oh man. And Dominic, do you have any cool? I know you usually get some cool collectibles for Christmas and stuff. Did you get anything you want to shout out that you got?
Man. For Christmas this year, I actually didn't get a ton of Star Wars stuff this year. I got some Star Wars oven mitts that were like Han and Chewie on each of them. But yeah, I mean this week for me in Star Wars, I've been doing a push to get caught up in the High Republic, because I kind of. I hadn't really read much High Republic stuff since the summer, since Race to Crash Point Tower. And with Fallen Star coming out this week, I sort of felt like, I need to get caught up because there's a new Claudia Gray Star Wars book. I got to read it. And I loved Rising Storm so much that I wanted to see the continuation.
Oh, yeah.
But I read somewhere that Rising Star or Fallen Star, the enjoyment is really heightened if you read everything that goes on in between. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get caught up. And so I went on Reddit. I found where somebody put everything in chronological order, and I've been reading through in chronological order, and I've been getting really into the comics because that was something I'd been missing. And so I read this week. I read the Marvel High Republic series. I read issues 1 to 8. That was fantastic. And I read the High Republic Adventures 1 to 5. And that High Republic Adventures, that was the series I thought, man, I could probably skip that. Yeah. And then I read it and I'm like, I shouldn't have slept on this. This is really good.
It's so really good. I like that more than the Marvel comics. I can't believe I'm saying that, because like I think you probably have that realization of like, it's just because the Star Wars adventure comics, I like them, but like they're not going to be earth-shattering plot details in those things. So you kind of figure, their High Republic adventures is probably gonna be the same. No, it's like these characters are going through the ringer, and this is not just for like little kids, like there's actually some seriously bad things that happen, and these characters are going through so much.
Oh yeah, the relationships just like between the two kids from the one planet, the one who's Force sensitive and the one who goes off with Marchion Ro, like just that whole relationship, and they're back and forth through the hologram messages that they're leaving for each other, and how they both still care deeply for each other, but they're both really mad at each other it's so good. It's so layered, and it made the ending of issue 5, which is where I've stopped. I gotta pick up again probably later this week or next week, I guess. But it made that end point so like kind of rips your heart out. It's it was a great first arc. I've been really enjoying it and really getting into it. And I'm gonna start the Edge of Balance manga book that they got there. I'm looking forward to that, and then we're gonna read Out of the Dark, I think, is the next
Out of the Shadows
that I have, or Out of the Shadows, is the next.
Okay, book so you're kind of going through the Reddit list and being like, okay, read this first. That's really cool.
This, yeah,
and then really works.
I gotta listen to the audio drama, and then I'll be ready to dive into Fallen Star.
So what are the audio dramas? Those are the comic books?
No, there's the what's it's called, the Tempest Runner, that came out. That's an original audio drama that I think Kevin Scott wrote.
It's all about Lorna D.
Because I'm Dominic. I'm into like the audio dramas or audio books in general. So like that Ben and I love those type of like media. So I have to check those out.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
really good. It's really good. Everything in the High Republic. I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. I love
Well,
Yeah.
it.
I know. I mean, Chris, you've been saying it since day one, and I mean, I know the new Eclipse game eventually. That's High Republic, correct?
Yeah,
Mhm.
somewhere now. I mean,
So,
the
and
High Republic
yeah,
era is going to be like
so
hundreds of years, so it'll be there
right,
somewhere.
right. Now, is that's in the future or the past?
The High Republic?
Yes.
Oh, that's about 200 years before the Phantom Menace.
All right. So is
Yeah.
that technically kind of like, I mean, I guess Old Republic stuff too? I mean, I know it's
It's like
high,
the
but
bridge. It's like the bridge,
all
but I
right.
guess between Old Republic and High Republic, and we got
Okay.
some news that we're gonna talk about later today, where like there's even more of a timeline stretch now, which we'll mention. But
Okay.
the stories that we have now take place 200 years before the Phantom Menace, which is pretty cool. It's enough time that is between what we know and what we don't know to actually see like, oh, there's a distinct difference between the mentality and everything that's going on and the looks and the
Right.
technology. So. Yeah. All
Okay.
right. So we're gonna jump into the show proper. I do want to send a shout out to everybody in the chat. We have Chris Forsyth. He's chiming in on the Force Unleashed, and we also have our buddy Ben. He's over there in Hawaii having a great time. I'm gonna read his analysis of Boba Fett towards the end of our discussion of that because he left us a little review on there. So everybody that's chatting, chat away, send your questions in, whatever. And for those of you that are listening, you can also watch this every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern. We go live. And if you're watching us, we also have a podcast service. You can go and download us on Spotify, on Apple Music, on any of those podcast
Hmm.
streaming networks. So make sure you go ahead and support the channel by doing that. So we're going to get into the show proper. And we're going to start with the Book of Boba Fett. We're going to give, maybe 5 minutes or so of spoiler-free talk for those that just want to get an idea of how this episode was. But then I'll try to make it clear this week of, hey, we're going into spoiler territory. So I'm gonna throw this to our guests. I'm gonna throw it to Dominic for his initial impressions about this episode, The Tribes of Tatooine, episode 2.
Yeah, I loved this one. I thought the first episode was okay, but I thought this one was spectacular. And I think if you put those two episodes together, like literally take the exact first episode, take the exact second episode, remove the credits of the first one, and just have it go right from the first one into the second one, and just play it all the way through, I think you have like a near perfect episode. I think it's just such a, I think it's just such
Yep.
a good start to the series, and the only shame is that they broke it up into two episodes instead of just letting it all play out as one. But I loved. I've been so loving the relationship that Boba has with the Tusken Raiders. I think that's been so fascinating to watch that play out and watch it evolve over the course of these two episodes, and the stuff that's going on in the present. Really interesting too. I mean, just we're not talking spoilers, so I won't say anything just yet. But the characters that pop up at the end of the present stuff in the second episode, that's some stuff I've been wanting to see for a while, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out and where it takes us and where we're eventually going. So yeah, I think we've had a really strong start to the series as a whole, and this episode really cemented that.
Yeah, I know. But Milton, you have almost pretty similar sentiments to how Dominic was talking about the construction of episode 1 and 2. So you want to share your
Yep.
thoughts?
That's exactly what I said literally on Wednesday after the episode ended. And I actually said that last Friday, I believe. I said, they should have released it as a 2-episode premiere, just like they've done with their other Marvel shows, and how I think those shows have been done a lot of justice when they release their first 2 episodes. It kind of builds that momentum. I felt that this particular episode, again, non-spoilers when we're talking about this segment, it strengthened the premiere episode. And you're right, it
Yeah.
should have been played all as one, or at least back to back, because you could have gone right from one to the other. And Dominic, you're right. I'm loving the relationship that we're getting in the past with the Tusken Raiders and how that evolves Boba's character. Obviously, the story that's in the present, I think it ended strongly. I'm still kind of indifferent about the present story yet, because we still haven't gotten a lot of details about what's all happening. We're just getting tidbits. I'm really enjoying the past stories, so I love that. Best episode thus far. I know it's only 2. But what I guess I'm saying is it's a really strong directed episode. It's one of the better episodes in this whole Mandalorian universe thus far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this was really something special. I think you could feel it in those sequences with Boba and the Tuskens, that there was more going on here than we usually see in a Star Wars TV show, or at least in the live action stuff thus far. So I've been really enjoying it, and I agree. The stuff in the present, it needs a little bit more, and I'm sort of hoping after 2 weeks where the stuff in the present has kind of taken a backseat to the stuff in the past, that maybe in episode 3 the past will take a little bit of a backseat, and we can get the ball rolling a little bit more on the present, and see exactly what Boba's up against in Mos Espa and beyond, while still continuing to show his story with the Tusken Raiders. Just switch the emphasis at least for 1 week, and
I agree with that. Yeah, I totally understand that, and I think that's where I think they're gonna realize. I mean, they probably already do realize it. Let's start building the main plot points of the main story. That ties in obviously with the past flashbacks to what goes on with the present story. So I trust the writers, and you're going to hear me say this multiple times. I trust the trio of Robert, John, and Dave. Like they've been great thus far. So
same.
Yeah. I'll agree with both of what you said. Same thoughts here. I did really enjoy the first episode. I know it was probably a little uneven and stuff, but the second episode was even better for me. I feel like it's got all the elements of Star Wars I want. It's got those big reveals that I was looking for out of episode 1 that we didn't really get, but it's also got those real Star Wars crazy things that happen that only could happen in Star Wars because they're just so weird and strange. But you have those like little like on the surface details, which I really enjoy. But then the fact that we're getting this deep into Boba Fett, who is one of the most mysterious characters in the entire franchise, and we're getting this kind of development for him already in 2 episodes. I like how the creators have not wasted any time, because I've been most curious about, hey, what happened over the last 5 years? And literally in episode 2, we're already seeing him getting a different black garb, clothing and different things. So they are wasting no time with the show. We still have 5 other episodes, and it feels like we're almost kind of caught up with his backstory to really delve into that present day story. I feel like this episode made it even clearer for me. Yes, we don't have a direct like plot line for where the present day is going, but I feel like the threat is even more present than it has been before. You're getting involved with these other new characters that are really pressing forward the intensity of, okay, it's not going to be as easy for Boba Fett to kind of take over Tatooine and more of the crime underworld. You're getting more people that are bubbling from the surface, but there's also some really funny little comedic moments in here, which is just pure Star Wars. So I think John and Dave and Robert really, it's evident from Mandalorian, really understand Star Wars. They put some really, really deep cuts in there from deleted scenes, which I'm like, oh, come on. Like, that is such a Favreau thing. I mean, Life Day and now this. It's like, come on. So
Jon Favreau seems to have made it his mission just to like pull the most obscure pieces of Star Wars stuff from the original trilogy era and just throw it on screen. The fact that in the first episode, like you're saying, there's holiday special references. He's got Boba's in the first episode of Mandalorian. I mean, he's got Boba's gun from the holiday special cartoon, and he's using it on a dragon thing. It's like Favreau's just going like, yeah, I loved everything Star Wars 77 to 83, so I'm putting it all in there, whether anybody else liked it or not.
Oh man. So yeah, we are going to officially call the spoiler alert. So everybody that's watching, listening, just pause, do whatever, come back after you watch the episode. So, what do we start with this one now? Spoilers. Where do you guys want to start with this one? Because I know where I want to start with this one.
I'll start. I'll start with this one. And Chris, I'll just start probably where you want to start. The Wookiee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, look, because when he popped up, I was like, he seems familiar. I've seen him before. And the look, I tell you what, whoever played the Wookiee character, the look you get, like the facial, you can tell some acting was really done, because you're like, man, he's about to do something, and he's on the verge of doing something. And I'm like, oh, he didn't have to say a word. And I'm like, there's a lot going on with this character. Obviously, Chris, you'll get into it like you did, and you actually, for those listening and watching, Chris did a video on his channel literally that day about this character. This character is a badass. he's done some stuff in Star Wars, and he's went up against some of the heavyweights of Star Wars and lived somehow. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with this character, because it's not going to be the last time we see him.
No. So the big guy in the room, the elephant, the big Wookiee in the room, is none other than Black Chrysanthemum. And Milton says, if you want to learn about this character, I have a video about it. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because I usually watch this show twice. And the first day I watch it early as hell in the morning, and then I watch it when I get home with my mother. And well, I gauge her reaction to like just the average Star Wars fan, and she even kind of sat up in her seat a little bit, like, "Oh, who's that guy? Like that guy is interesting." Like so, even people that don't know anything about the comics, and I've seen this online too, where like people are like talking about this Wookiee, like this is the big character that everybody knows. He's an imposing character. I love the way that he's introduced. Like you just see the back of him. You see, and I already knew at that point. I was like, that's probably him. I just seen just the guy's presence as he walks around, the way he holds himself, the way he like turns to Boba when he's gonna walk away, and he has that like lion's growl, which I was like, oh crap, like this guy means business. But yeah, this is great.
The thing is though, Chris, like again, do we know who plays that character? Do we know you have an actor that's identified? Okay, whoever that actor is, there's no way it's CGI because it'll look too real. One. And two, just the facials. I can't get over the facials because it really, like, he didn't frighten me. He just, like, I'm like, whoa, like, I don't want to step to him. Like, he just seemed like there was a presence there. Like, I mean, obviously, Vader is a character we think of when we first see on the screen that, oh, wait, he jumps out. But Black Chrysanthemum jumps out on the screen without question. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm curious to see how these guys directed this particular character or this actor to give those facials, those expressions. That'd be some cool behind the scenes stuff to see how they pulled that off.
I've noticed in general that the puppetry and everything that's going on with some of these practical effects is just so good. Like they're even on the other aliens, I'm noticing how great it is, especially with the Book of Boba Fett. I feel like it's even a step above the other things, even the movies that have been released, but like prosthetic wise. But Dominic, what was your thoughts on Black Chrysanthemum, a comic book character making his way for the first time to live action?
Yeah, well, it's sort of I think Cobb Vanth opened the floodgates last year with in Mandalorian, and it was sort of like if they can bring in that character, if they can bring in a character who was in 3 interlude chapters in the Aftermath trilogy, then they can definitely bring in a character who's a recurring presence throughout multiple Star Wars comic book series. Right. And when I saw him, I felt very similar to how Milton felt. Like there's just such an intimidating presence to that character that he's got the physicality, but he's also got like the stink eye that you don't want to mess with him. He's there. He looks tough. He looks mean. He looks like he could take you out. And a fight between Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum, I think, would just be tremendous. And he's in a lot of ways he's the antithesis of Chewbacca. Yeah. And you're talking about the presence and the performance, and I think about all the things that Peter Mayhew did back in the day to make Chewie so endearing without ever really showing his face, really just using his physicality and his eyes. And whoever's in that suit in Book of Boba is just doing the opposite of what Peter was doing. He's making him really intimidating and really scary using just his eyes and his physical presence. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I hope that this means there's more. The door is open for more characters from the books and comics to show up, and from the animated series as well, and just bringing in some of these characters when it makes sense to flesh out the universe and flesh out the story.
Yeah, so let's let's speculate a little bit, shall we? So Black Chrysanthemum connected to many characters in Star Wars, as I mentioned, different eras, different characters he's fought against. Mostly people know him from Dr. Aphra. Point blank, do we think that Dr. Aphra is going to show up in some Star Wars project? Is this kind of confirmation that, okay, if they could show the Wookiee that he pals around with, maybe eventually we'll see him, maybe not Boba Fett, but maybe another show connected to the Mandalorian verse? I think it's possible now.
Oh yeah, I think it's inevitable that we see Dr. Aphra show up. I think that character has proven to be popular enough on the page that she's gotten her own comic book series. She's gotten multiple of her own comic book series. She's gotten her own audio drama. I think it's just a matter of time now. It's just a matter of finding the right story and finding the right actress to play that character. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. I don't know if we'll see her in Book of Boba Fett. I wouldn't rule it out.
Right.
But there's a lot of stories coming up that take place in original trilogy adjacent time periods, and we know she's running around the galaxy at the same time as the original trilogy. Maybe she's running around at the same time as Andor as well. Maybe she could pop up in there. Maybe she could run into Cassian, or 5 years after Return of the Jedi, maybe she's still around. She could certainly show up and go on an adventure with Boba Fett or Din Djarin or Ahsoka or any of these other characters that are getting their own shows. So I think it's inevitable. I think it's a matter of time, and I'm here for it when it happens. I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah. And I have another crazy theory. This one's even crazier. I know this guy kind of opened up the floodgates for my my dreams and my imagination. But it's like, okay, we have a Wookiee that has entered the stage. And now we have this other Wookiee over here with this other guy that's a smuggler that flies a YT-1300 freighter. Wouldn't it be cool to see two Wookiees fight against each other? I mean, that'd be awesome, right? Say, Tamara Morrison said
it wouldn't be ridiculous at all. It wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like who plays Chewie now? What's his name?
Jonas.
Jonas, yeah. I guarantee you, if you pitched it to Jonas and said, "Hey, we want to bring you into the Mandalorian verse," I'm sure that you can convince him to say yes. Because again, the materials are there. And again, they fought in the comics in the past, correct? Chewie and Black. So like, it's inevitable, and I think it's reasonable. So I wouldn't be against it, and it wouldn't be forcing a story. It'd be kind of a natural story that would need to progress eventually, I would think. Obviously, if it's pitched correctly and told correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Solo kind of showed us, how intimidating Chewbacca can be, or it kind of reminded us how intimidating Chewbacca can be when you had that sequence with him and Han in the pit. And, for as lovable as Chewie is and as lovable as we want Chewie to be, like if Chewie shows up in Book of Boba alongside Han or anybody else, you're going to get some lovable Chewie moments. You have to. You can't not. But you could also remind everybody that, when he needs to, he can throw down, and a battle between him and Black Chrysanthemum would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we're going to talk about the other big reveal that happened, which would have been enough for me. Just the Hutts showing up just made me clap. I watched this episode at like 5:20 in the morning, and I was just clapping, like, yeah, people are probably going to wake up in this place, but I don't really care. But so, yeah, we had twins showing up on this litter. That was the first time, Dominic and Milton, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time we've seen the live action Hutt since 1999.
Yeah. I kind of can't believe it. Like it sort of feels like something that somebody would have thought at some point, hey, why don't we put a Hutt in one of these movies? And nobody did. Really, it's the only other time I can think of that we've seen Hutts since Disney took over. Like there's one episode of Resistance where we had a kind of a zany Hutt who was in there.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, they've kind of been left to, the Lego stuff and kind of the funnier stuff, at least on screen. And so to get this sequence and be reminded of the fact that these are intimidating characters, and just their entrance, man, with that drum beat, that slow drum beat, it was so cool, and it was so well done. It was drawn out in just the right way. That you felt their presence, and Jabba, it's something that is one of those like wonderful things about Star Wars, that it can take something that's so weird and make it so intimidating. Because Jabba the Hutt, if you just try and explain Jabba the Hutt to somebody who's never seen Jabba the Hutt, never heard of Jabba the Hutt, never knew what a Jabba the Hutt was, you try and explain Jabba to them, you sound like an insane person. Right. He's a big giant slug, and he laughs, and he's got a little monkey guy that sits on his lap, and he eats slugs, and he smokes the whole time, and everybody's scared of him. And if you try and explain that to somebody, they were like, what are you talking about? Are you insane? And yet you see him in Return of the Jedi, and he's just got this presence about him that you understand why the heroes are afraid of him. And they managed to capture that again with the twins, that they had this kind of weird banter between the two of them that played out in a way that, if there was a showdown in the street between the Hutts and their people against Boba Fett and Fennec Shand and their people, I don't know who's winning that one. Like that's if there's like an Old West style battle, it's going to be a tough one for Boba and Fennec.
Yeah. I mean, I go back. I have a soft spot for Hutts because that's probably the first Star Wars memory I want to say I have. Every time I tell a story, first Star Wars memory, I was at my neighbor's house watching Return of the Jedi. He had it on. I seen a big slug guy. And from that moment on, I was like, oh, this series is kind of scary, but it's kind of cool. And then I got a Jabba the Hutt little hat. That was like, I think my first like little merchandise I had when I was 6 or 7. So to see these guys coming back, I was like, dude, I kind of feel like a kid again. This excitement of like these Hutt characters showing up on the TV. Like, this is awesome. And I like how they have a different design. They have like these, it reminds me of the Clone Wars. Like they have like the tattoos. So I was like, that's cool. Like they have that, the animation kind of like design with the live action. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, that reminded me of was it Zero the Hutt?
Yeah.
Zero had the tattoos on him. Yeah, I love that. I love that scene. I love the banter back and forth, like Dominic mentioned, especially the sister. I think the sister is probably the more she's probably the more badass of the two. I can probably tell. You can tell because she's like very soft spoken and she's whispering in the brother's ear. He's like, "Yeah, did he speak English? I don't remember. Was it English or was it Huttese or whatever it was?" But like he spoke. He's like, "Well, pretty much my sister's feeling a certain way. I'm more forgiving, but she's like, nah, we should kill you now." And I was like, I don't want to mess with her. So I love that back and forth. I feel like the sister, we're going to get a lot more of her and what she's all about. Maybe she's pulling the strings. Maybe she's really the one that's in charge. I thought they did. I don't know if those Hutts were practical or
That's
CGI.
what I was wondering. That's what I'm
wondering. But they looked amazing. Like they fooled me if they were CGI because it looked good. So I loved the design. I loved it.
Yeah, I think they were CGI, but they looked great. Like,
great.
CGI Hutts don't have a great history in Star Wars. You go back to those that scene in the special edition and all of its updates. They never quite got recaptured the magic of the puppet Jabba, but they look pretty. These guys look pretty good. They had that Hutt feeling about them.
Yeah, I think maybe it was a mix. I feel like when we get the behind the scenes, it might be said like from a far away shot, like most of the body would be practical, but like maybe the face, like up from the face up, is like CG. I feel like it's maybe even a mix.
Yeah, I wonder if it's something like in The Rise of Skywalker, they actually built a practical version of that snake attacks them in the tunnels. Now for the movie, they replaced almost all of the shots of it with a CGI one, but they had a practical one that really worked for the actors to interact with. And it wouldn't surprise me if they had something similar like that they had some kind of practical thing there that they controlled with robotics from off to the side. And then when it came time to actually finish the episode, they either replaced it entirely with CG or they augmented it in a big way with CG.
Yeah. So talking about, you mentioned this, Dominic, about the amount of drama that was built up. He's at the sanctuary talking to Garza, and it's just like boom, 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 and you're just like boom, boom, and you're like, oh shoot, what's about to happen here? This is not good. And even just, I love the little details they put in the show. Like, for instance, if you're watching, like, you got the little guys that are carrying them, and there's, like, people are barely able to hold the weight. Like, the one guy was, falls over at one point. Like, I love, like, that's such a Star Wars thing, right? Like, having these little, like, weird, like, funny things happening when it's, like, something super serious going on.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. I felt like this episode was really leaning into the influence that Dune has had on Star Wars over the years, with all the talk of spice and all the sequences out in the desert, and the Tuscans' presence in the desert. And I felt it in this sequence as well with the Hutts. That just something felt like it was the Harkonnens coming into town as much as it was the Hutts, and it had that same feel to it. It was cool. I liked it.
Yeah. So let's rewind a little bit. We're gonna just keep the conversation for the present day for now. There's a lot to talk about the past, but I do want to talk about one other thing, and that is the interaction with the mayor, because I felt that was a pretty cool standout moment. Just the way that the whole scene transition. I love the beginning. This was just so funny how Boba Fett walks in and the major domo is like, "Oh, you don't have an appointment today. You can't go in. You can't go in." He just walks around the corner, presses the button, and he goes, "You damn, who's this person? You don't know. You do damn well know who I am." Like that was the hardest line in Star Wars. Tamora Morrison just delivers that line. You damn well know who I am, or however it went. I just love that. But just talking about that scene again, another great. He had to be practical, right? The Ithorian.
I think so.
Yeah.
It looked real to me.
Yeah, if you've ever been to Galaxy's Edge in Doc Ondar's shop, they have an animatronic Ithorian that you can get pretty close to. There's still a thing in the way, so you can't reach out and touch it, but you can get pretty close to it, and he looks really real. Like if you could get that thing to move just a little bit more naturally and a little less robotically, you would think it was an actual person sitting there, doing paperwork. And so I assume they use a very similar technology, and maybe they put somebody in the costume so that they could get that more natural movement. But I have no doubt that they're able to pull off a hammerhead like that. Practically.
Yeah.
Just having seen it in person at Disney.
And the fact that he's got the vocator, so I love the audio design where you hear like his actual alien voice, but on top of that is like I think I heard, I don't know if this is true, like Anthony Rodriguez voiced one of the characters in the last couple episodes.
Robert Rodriguez plays the mayor. Yeah, he voices him.
Oh, cool. So that's a cool little Easter egg for everybody out there. But for the actual like conversation itself, I like how it ends, leads that air of mystery. He brings the Nightwind Warrior and he's like, "Hey, this is your guy," and he just shoots him right away. Like that was such a Godfather Mafia type of thing to do. And we've been saying it, like the Book of Boba Fett is basically the Mafia's Star Wars kind of. So what you guys think about how everything transpired in that scene there?
Well, with that guy being killed, it was pretty much now saying it's a dead man's word against mine. That's how I interpreted that. It's like, and honestly, the scene was really well done because once he kills him quickly, he's like, "Oh, thank you for bringing him to us. He's not supposed to operate around here, blah, blah, blah." Really, he's saying, "No, I hired him. I'm just not going to let him tell you that I did in that way, shape, or form." So it was cool how he's very tongue-in-cheek with it. I love the tension. I love the whole scene. I will say the aesthetics of the scene, like the design of it was gorgeous. It was well lit too. You could see everything, everyone. Again, I love that particular part of the episode because you were seeing more of where the story could potentially go, which then obviously led to the Hutts. So again, I'm wanting more of that, and I'm looking forward to what they're going to show us in the next 2 or 3 episodes down the road.
Yeah, I agree. It was like the mayor, he's covering up his loose ends, or he's cutting off his loose ends as soon as he takes him out, and that's sort of the end of it. But another thing that I really loved in that scene was, we so much of this episode is about Boba's identity and who he is, and is he defined by his armor, or is he defined by his past? What makes Boba Fett Boba Fett? And while in the past, in the other half of the story, you have Boba on this kind of quest to rediscover himself after surviving the Sarlacc pit. You have everybody in this episode trying to define who Boba Fett is on their terms, and Boba's trying to say, "No, I'm the crime lord. I'm in control here," and everybody else is just saying, "No. Boba Fett is a bounty hunter, and that's all he'll ever be." And the Hutts call him a bounty hunter. The mayor calls him a bounty hunter, and the mayor treats him like a bounty hunter, right? Because the mayor shoots the assassin guy, and then he pays Boba. He's like, "Oh, here's the money. Essentially, here's the bounty for turning this guy in." And Boba's like, "I'll take this as as the tribute you should have paid me." But really, the mayor's going like, "Here is your bounty. Thank you for hunting this person for me." Yeah, that's how he's trying to spin it. He's just trying to get Boba to go back to being who he always was and give up on this idea of being the crime lord. And right. So it was really interesting to see. This is what Boba's going up against. Nobody wants to see him try and be anything other than what he's always been. And so he's got to find some way of making everybody see him as something more.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I like about the storytelling, is that you have the flashbacks that are kind of also playing a little bit on the present storyline as well with the way that's going. So it's all connecting. Like there's that line that the mayor says at the end, something about family, something it's harder to keep family together or something like that. To keep everybody in line and stuff like that. And he's quickly like, he's getting it over his head. He thinks this is going to be a simple, easy task, and it is far from that as he's quickly finding out being assaulted from all different sorts of people.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, look at modern, I guess, with our lives, you know, if you're not used to being a boss or some type of manager, some way, shape, or form, it's hard because you have to manage personalities. You got to make sure that, you know, you're no one's stealing from you, that your business is running smoothly, all that stuff. And I think that was a great dialogue to talk about. Hey, like this isn't as easy as you think it's going to be, Boba Fett. Like running a family is going to be very difficult. And he was taking a shot at him. Let's be real here. So it was well done. And again, I mean, in our own lives, if we had to change up our positions with our jobs or whatever, and was put in charge, man, people would look at us differently. They wouldn't see us as like a boss or whatever. They say, oh, he's just that guy who just works for us. Now he just was elevated by chance. Yeah. So I thought it made sense. It was very much a parallel of reflection of real life and how people are elevated in those positions.
We have some discussion going on in the chat, and this was something I was going to bring up as well. It's like, did the mayor hire the assassins? This is what Tim Sheets is saying. I thought it was the Hutts, and Chris is chiming in. We don't know yet. Tim is also saying, I thought Boba or Fennec said the Hutts hired the assassins. That would make sense too. I think this is what we're supposed to be chatting about. This is that story piece where it's like, okay, this is going to get the people talking. Who's the killer? Who's the assassins? You know, week to week to week. Hopefully they don't keep us waiting too long. I know damn well, or at least I think so, that it's not just these night guys. What are they called? Night Winds. They're not just Night Wind assassins. All right, there's something more behind them, and I've been shouting it from the damn rooftops ever since they've appeared in the trailers of the Crimson Dawn already. Just tell us. Especially with later on in the episode, there's like other solo characters that have showed up. Like you cannot tell me they're not just trying to prepare us for a Crimson Dawn reveal. Right.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be coming down the pike, so to speak. At some point, I don't know how all this is going to play out because I feel like I wonder if Crimson Dawn could be an ally to Boba Fett in some way. Like you know, if the Hutts and everybody is against him, and if there are other people in the underworld that want to make a play to be kind of the main player, the main person, take over from Jabba, or take over from the Hutts in general. Maybe they just feel like, you know what, the Hutts have had their time. It's time for new ideas, for fresh blood. They might look at Boba Fett and think, yeah, this could be a really powerful ally, and we'll give him control of Tatooine or something else. Or you create one of those uneasy alliances of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and the two people work together to overthrow or to beat one thing, and then as soon as they've accomplished that one task that they agreed on, they go back to fighting each other. So I think that would be really interesting, and I'd really like to see Emilia Clarke come back as Qi'ra and fill that role in some way in this story. So I feel like that's got to be on the table, if not for this season, maybe for season 2.
Yeah. Oh man, season two. I know I labeled this as season 1, kind of putting it into the air that we get a season 2 out there.
Yeah, Sam.
Let's go on season 2.
Just gonna manifest it. Just gonna make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, hey, maybe we'll get that acknowledgement at the end of the seasons, like they did with the Mandalorian season 2. Hey, season 2 coming, or like Loki did it.
Yeah.
Season 2 confirmed. So let's just dive into the meat of this episode. I was actually surprised. Well, first off, I'll back up a little bit. When I watched this episode at 5 something in the morning, like I said. First off, this is weird. I don't know if you caught this, Dominic, because I assume you watched it early in the morning, right?
Yeah.
They didn't even have a thumbnail ready. It was just like the Disney Plus default logo. I was like, oh wow, like they're really like not having us see anything at this point.
Yeah. They had no thumbnail and no description. It was just like, here's this Disney Plus logo, and it says, "Watch the episode." It's like, okay.
and I was excited.
So.
I was excited because it said it was like 50-something minutes long. So I was like, all right, we're gonna like 20 more minutes to this story this week. That was
Yeah,
fun.
and
That made me happy because I was like, thank God we get at least an hour episode.
yeah.
Seriously, like I am so conditioned now to look at the times before I start the episode
Mm.
because I'm
Yep.
like, okay, at least I know I'm going to get like a long story I'm going to have to invest in.
Mhm.
It was just crazy, but I mean, overall, and I'll get into what I guess I liked about the past stuff. I love seeing the Pikes. I'm not gonna lie, like
Mhm.
because at first I had a
Mm-hmm.
double take. I'm like, are those the
Yep.
Pikes?
Yeah, I
And
was
they
like, huh?
look great. And here's the thing, they didn't look. I know we saw them, I guess, in Solo.
Yeah.
They didn't look like those characters in Solo. They look actually very much the way we saw them in the animation of
Yeah.
Clone Wars. They looked amazing. And is that the first time we saw like a train in Star Wars in a sense?
We've
Like
seen one in
like
Solo, I
was it in
guess.
Solo?
Yeah.
I don't. Oh well, they were okay. That's right. They were on the mountain in that. But I'm talking about over the desert. Like
Oh,
this was kind of
no.
dope. No, this was dope, and I love that interaction and how Boba was going to teach him how to ride the speeders. I mean, we'll get into all that too, but him saying, "Okay, I will teach you," and I love the communication that he was developing with them. Which I'm thinking like, I didn't know Tuskens can speak basic or
Yeah.
like I was like, oh snap, like he's really like connecting with the Tuskens, and we talked about this last week. They're making the Tuskens likable, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I've loved the way they've been evolving the Tusken Raiders over the course of the Mandalorian and now this, where yeah they've given them that sort of the sign language that is apparently based on ASL, so it's very similar to how people would sign stuff in real life, and just they've made them, they've taken kind of characters that were just there, for slightly more than set decoration in the original and prequel trilogy. They were just kind of, they're really just sort of caricatures there to be adversaries for a brief moment for the characters in the films, and they've turned them into a whole society and a whole culture that's really interesting and really deep and is yeah, it's really deep. It's been really interesting to see them sort of play it out and find the balance between them, still being tough warriors, but also having that real heart to their society. And this episode, just seeing what day-to-day life is like for Tusken Raiders over the last two episodes, and seeing the good, the bad, and the in between. It's been one of the highlights, I think, of the last couple of years of Star Wars storytelling, is how they've taken something that's so throwaway in the films, and they've built something really interesting and really meaningful out of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you mentioned the word culture. I think we got a lot of that in this episode, especially obviously whenever Boba says, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to ride the speeders. I'm going to stop the train," which leads to him being accepted into their tribe, and seeing like that whole transition, and like the little lizard when he's like, "Oh, I have a gift for you."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, here it is." And he's like, "Oh, this is your guide." And he's like, "Oh," and then you notice how Boba was like, well, "Okay, I'll let it guide me." And all of a sudden, it jumps inside of him, and he goes on a walkabout, which I love that because you got to see him dive into his past as a boy. Now, whoever they cast as young Boba Fett got a clone of Daniel Logan at that age because he looked just like him.
I think that's a little bit of CGI wizardry going on there.
Absolutely, yeah, about to say. But I tell you what, whoever they got in the CGI, it looked damn good to me.
Yeah.
But him to go to the tree, and you
Yeah.
get flashbacks of him being in the Sarlacc pit. I think you got a couple shots of Django, some shots of Camino. I was like, "Oh, this is really dope." Where you get into the internal mind of him. I'm thinking, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
Like culture, like he's smoking a peace pipe a little bit, maybe. But he got the tree branch, which I had no idea what the tree branch meant until like you see it at the end.
Oh man, yeah, we could break that down for like an hour.
That's
Just
what
that
I'm saying.
entire
I was like, what's
sequence.
the tree branch got to do with anything?
Like
And then
I
when they
didn't
show,
even.
like,
They
go ahead.
they revealed like, oh yeah, Tatooine used to have water. They revealed that, and then there's trees that exist on Tatooine somehow. Like, wait, what? Like,
That's what I'm
this
saying.
is mind blowing.
I was like, where would you get the tree
here.
at? I'm like, what? Tree popped up in the desert? I was like, this is crazy. But like, I just loved how they showed that side of the Tusken Raiders, and I'm assuming that anyone who's in a Tusken Raider culture have gone through that.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved it, and then obviously the creation of his stick, which was awesome. Like just seeing how the forgery goes about it, the personal design is kind of like building your own lightsaber. The
Mm-hmm.
personal design that goes into it. Um, like he had to do it himself. No one could do it for him. He was taught how to do it,
Yep.
which I
Yep.
love seeing that creation, and then him being fitted for his robes. Again, it's just great storytelling. It's great culture, and like you said, Dominic, there it was a throwaway characters we got in the original and prequel trilogies. Now we're seeing them for who they really are as a culture, and really their culture isn't bad. You know, we thought it was when we
Yeah.
first saw them as characters in the original movies. Really, they're just trying to survive too.
I
Mm-hmm.
liked how they answered one of the questions that was over the last week where it was like, oh, they're making these killers out to be good guys. Well, they kind of specifically mentioned like, oh, there are different tribes of the
Hmm.
Tusken Raiders. And I think they specifically made these guys have different kind of textile clothing and different tents and stuff to kind of delineate and separate like the fact that there's a certain kind of Tusken Raider here, and they probably have different kind of cultural identities and things of worship as well, a little bit, I would assume. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I love the initiation and going more into that little vision. I think that's one of the best Star Wars visions we've had, even like compared to the
Mm-hmm.
movies and whatnot. It was like really cerebral. Like at one point, the tree is wrapping around them. It's almost like the Sarlacc pit, and it's like,
Hmm.
what is going on here?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me of what's the part in the not Resistance Rebels? Who's that big character that Kanan or
The
Ezra
Bendu.
runs into? The Bendu, yes. Kind of like that. Obviously, the tree wasn't talking
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to Boba, but the Bendu was kind of like that spiritual walkabout thing for both those two characters. The tree was kind of like this for the Tusken Raiders and for Boba Fett. So that was kind of cool. I guess correlation. And we all know with Dave Filoni being part of the show, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just echo what you guys have been saying. I think that this vision sequence, like, it's just spectacular. It's one of the things that I didn't know I needed. I didn't know I needed
Yeah.
Boba Fett going on a vision quest to discover who he really is, and yet I look at it and it's just incredible. And I sort of realized how good it was going to be as soon as they started cutting between him in the white jumpsuit and him in the armor, just stumbling through the
Uh-huh.
desert. And it's like, who's the real character? Is it the armor
Yeah.
or is it the man underneath it? And that's sort of what Boba's been grappling with. That's what he's trying to figure out post Sarlacc. He's after the gets out of the Sarlacc and the Jawas steal all of his armor. Now just he's just a man. He doesn't have his super suit anymore. He's got to figure it out. And this whole sequence just sort of spells out who Boba Fett is. His identity now isn't so much wrapped up in the armor, but it's wrapped up in what he's learning from the Tuskens. What breaks him out of the vision is that branch that becomes his gaffy stick. And then we also, with the little flashback with Boba, with young Boba, watching Django leave, that's who Boba Fett has always been at his core, is, that little boy looking for his father. And he's, in a sense, tried to replace his father. He's tried to be his own father by putting on his father's armor and being a Django Fett 2.0. And again, he's got to find some way of moving on from just trying to be or replace his father, and finding some way to honor Django Fett without having everything he does be defined by the fact that he lost his father at a young age. And I think we see a little bit of that in Mandalorian season 2, and in that first episode that he's in, or that first episode where he comes back, right? He kicks just. I said this on Star Wars Underworld last night, but he kicks just as much ass without the suit as he does with the suit in that
Mm-hmm.
episode. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
incredible, and he still brings up his father. That's still very important to him. Django is still very important to him. But I think we're gonna see that there's some moment coming up in this show where he's gonna have to reckon with the fact that nothing he can do can bring Django back. So he's got to
Right.
find some way of going forward, like I said, honoring Django, but moving on with his life and doing something other than just trying to do what his father would have done.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not Ben, Dominic, to echo that, or even to build off of that, I think we're starting to see him obviously discover who he is, somewhat obviously, and I'm sure that's going to
Mhm.
happen with more growth. but even like honoring his father or doing something, having a higher purpose. Just him going to the I guess that quote unquote little cantina biker gang or whatever, dealing with
Mm.
them. You know,
Yeah.
like he went outside of his way to tell the Tuscans, I'm going to help you and show you how to stop the train. And the
Uh-huh.
first step is, okay, I'm going to wreck these guys and get their bikes. And he saved that couple, and he pretty much stopped the BS at the bar. So he's taken that steps to be, I guess, somewhat of a hero now,
Mhm.
and not thinking of himself. He's thinking of other people, whether it's the Tuscans, the patrons at the bar, and just the bar owner. So,
Yeah.
but that I love that scene too. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. He's like his whole thing. Like he keeps saying in all the trailers, I intend to rule with respect,
Yeah.
and I think he wants to see everybody working together. They're working together to do crime. They're still quote unquote bad guys, but they. I think Boba will look at something like what's going on in that in what is that Anchorhead or Tashi Station there with with those guys just being jerks, guys stealing Fixer's beer, stealing his chips, just all this awful stuff, and Boba just sort of steps in and it's like, this isn't right. Also I'm gonna beat you all up, and oh, by the way, once I get into power, if I'll stop this sort of nonsense and just get everybody working together so that when we all work together we can all achieve well, in their case, more money, more profits, more crime being done more effectively in a more humane way. That's the Boba Fett way.
But the hero's journey, I would have never thought Boba Fett would get that. And just to see, like you're explaining, Dominic and Milton, about him going in, saving these innocent lives, going on this crazy vision quest, and ending up later on in the timeline, like, helping save Grogu, all this stuff. Like, if you would have told me this like 5 years ago, I would believe you. Like, wait, Boba Fett as a shining, almost like a shining knight. Not a shining knight, but like a guy that is doing good for the world. Not just caring about himself, but actually like saving others. Another thing I picked up too, when the train first comes through and he's hanging out with the Tusken Raiders, he like gets the kids and he's like getting the kids to like run away. Like, I was like, holy crap, like Boba Fett is saving the innocents. Like, he's going through and doing what a good guy would be doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and when when they stop the train, he has that whole sequence with the Pikes where he kind of lays down the law for the Pikes, and he he doesn't just murder them all. He lets them go, but he makes it clear to them, these are the rules now. This is how things are going to be done in the Dune Sea. If you want to cross the Tusken Raiders' land, you need their permission and you need to pay a toll. You don't get to just come running through here and shooting at them so that you can carry your spice, do your crime through here. You gotta do something. We gotta do things a different way. And so you guys get to live. We're gonna let you live. We're not gonna murder you, but you gotta take this message and you got to understand that things are going to change out here.
Which I thought that was a great scene, and I'll get to that in a second. My only criticism of this episode was obviously when the Pike said, well, we're just defending what was ours, and we're just defending our way to wherever they were going. I'm thinking to myself, the Tusken Raiders are on Bantas. They're not catching you on that train.
Yeah.
So what are you really defending? And honestly, I think that was just an excuse. Now, maybe they really believed that they were trying to defend their property and their travel. But it's like, bro, you're going up against quote unquote savages of the Dune Sea. They don't have modern technology to do anything to hurt you. So I thought that was odd that the guy would say that, and maybe that was written on purpose.
Well,
I
wait
don't
a
know.
second.
Go ahead.
Didn't he say towards the end of the episode, like now, like Boba was talking with the Tuskens, like now you have some modern technology or something?
Yeah,
because
right?
they stole it from the train.
They stole it from the train.
They stole some technology.
Prior to that, before we got to that part, the Pike guy said we were just doing what we needed to do to protect our passage or something to that extent.
Okay.
And he's and I'm thinking like, wait a minute, what do you have to protect? You're on a hyperspace type train, bro, against Bantas and Raiders. I'm saying, like, that didn't make no sense to me. But again, I think that was just an excuse for the Pikes to just wreck people, because obviously the Pikes aren't good people. Let's be real here.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think the Pikes were just sort of, they didn't even think like, oh, we can maybe we can make a deal with these people. Maybe we
Right.
can figure something out. You know, they never sat down with some Tusken Raiders and said, look, we'll give you some money if you just let us go by. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. They just sort of went by, and at the first little sign that maybe somebody had a slight issue with the fact that they're driving a high speed train through their land without permission, they just started shooting.
Yeah.
And you know, he's trying to justify it, but there was no justifying it.
That's what I'm saying.
And Boba kind of reminded him of that fact.
Yeah, he's like,
you're-
come on. He's like, let's be real. He's like, you're just being a bully. It's like
Yeah.
the schoolyard bully finally getting caught or punched in the face by somebody that's bigger than him or her, and be like, oh wait, I wasn't trying to bully. I was just trying to defend myself the whole time. No, you're being a little biatch. So stop.
Yeah. Which is basically everything Boba says in that scene boils down to that.
Yeah. Boba's like, no, I'm calling you on your BS, and I just love how Boba took command. That's the thing. You were starting, and this is where I think you were going with this earlier, Chris, about how the stories are parallel in some way. You're starting to see Boba's leadership style and how he was taking over and how he was talking to the Pikes as like, okay, I can't like you're under my protection now, and I own you pretty much. So take this message back. And I think the Pikes will be an ally of him as the show goes on. Just throwing it out there as a guess.
I mean, it could be, right?
Yeah.
Wait, I'm thinking about it now, and this makes a lot of sense because in The Mandalorian, like every single episode, the first season was like upgrading the armor. We're getting this now this week. We're getting this other upgrade this week. I feel like so far this kind of tracks for Boba Fett. Instead of upgrading armor, he's gaining allies. He gained 2 Gamorrean guards, which are badass, by the way. I love those guys.
Those guys are incredible.
Yeah.
The way they charged it, I know, Milton, you had some criticism last week about those guys, but I was like, I love these guys. They're great.
No, I like them now. No, they were awesome this episode. I just felt the editing was weird last week because Dominic, please tell me you saw the same thing. At last episode, when they walked out and they got attacked, those guards were there. Then all of a sudden they were gone. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, where did they go? Like, because it took them like a minute to get back to like jump in the fight.
I didn't notice that, but I'm gonna have to go back and
Go
look
back
for
and
it
watch
now.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. Anyone's listening or watching, and please tell me I'm not crazy. Because they walked out together. You see them for like a second, all of a sudden they get jumped by those assassins, and then they're not there to be seen for like a good 2 minutes of the fight, and then they somehow pop back in to help Boba. I'm like, wait a minute, something ain't right here.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Oh man, but getting back. Oh crap, I lost my train of thought there. We were talking about Gamorreans. We were talking
Gamorrean
gaining
guards, yeah.
allies. We're getting allies.
Allies.
So maybe this episode he's gaining the allies of both the Tuskens as well as the Pikes, and maybe we'll see the Pikes come into play to like save him from the Hutts at one point later on in present day, maybe or something like that. And there was yeah.
No, I'm about to say which is a possibility, but continue. Go ahead.
We did have a comment in a chat a while ago from Tim. He's saying, so if the timeline with Mando is 5 years from Return of the Jedi, does this mean Fett is basically going to live with the Tuskens for 5 years? I mean, that's my assumption. Here's the thing, like, time could be so nebulous at this point. Like, we don't know how long he's could have been with the Tuskens for 3 years at this point. Like, we don't know how long it's been, or at this point, maybe since he got the black coat, we'll get like a time jump in the flashback where it's like, because we know in the trailers he like walks and finds Jabba's palace with that black coat. He finds the slave one. So I think we're gonna actually get to the point where he finds out where Grogu is, and we're gonna see that like him get on slave one, and they'll be like, okay, we're caught up now. So up until that point, I don't know what happens. Again, like I don't know why there isn't a drive for him to find his armor at this point, because we know Cobb Vanth would have it at this point. So, and Cobb Vanth is on Tatooine, so it's like, I'm still kind of seeing those motives. Like, obviously, he really prizes that armor, because when he gets it on in The Mandalorian Season 2, he's, like, showing Mando, like, oh, this is my father, my chain code, yada, yada, yada. So, I want to know what's going on with the armor. I think that's the last puzzle piece that maybe we'll get maybe next week about, like, okay, this is what he's doing for that entire expanse of time.
Yeah. And I'll just throw in, Star Wars has always had kind of a weird relationship with time. Like Empire Strikes Back. How long does Empire Strikes Back take place over the course of? Because,
oh, yeah.
If you look at the Luke and Yoda story, you feel like he's there for months. But if you look at the Han and Leia story, you feel like they're on the Falcon for like, 2-3 days, maybe a week, and it's like which is which, and so Star Wars has always had a little bit of that like movie time thing going on. So Boba spending 5 years in the desert with the Tuskens, sure, maybe that's a little bit, maybe that's a long time, but it's also, Star Wars doesn't really, Star Wars has a tendency to just sort of pick a random amount of time for something to take place over and then just stick with it, whether it totally makes sense or not. So, 5 years, long time, sure, but also, I don't think it's going to feel like 5 years over the course of the story.
Yeah. Going back to the flashback, I know Dominic, you're a fellow. We're all prequel fans here, obviously, but I know you must have gotten a kick out of seeing Kamino for the first episode, and it really bodes well that we're gonna keep seeing more of it, because if they showed us the second episode, I kind of have this crazy theory, and this episode kind of showed it again. There's a green filter that goes over. I'm going to go into crazy speculation mode again. There's a green filter that goes over the screen when it goes from him being a Bacta to him in past with the Tuskens. I think there's some kind of cloning stuff that is going wrong with him. I think he's getting to the point where he's super old, and he's got it, and that's why he's in the Bactapod, because he went in the Bactapod again, but there was no conflict, there was no battle this time around, but yet he was still in the Bactapod. So it's something like he has to constantly, like Milton was saying, something, he has to go to sleep in there or something like that every night, because it's going to keep him alive or something, until he'll get the fix by going to Kamino somehow. There will be a secret Kamino facility that wasn't destroyed by the Empire all those years ago, and he's going to find an antidote there for something. And I think that because they wouldn't make these assets for Kamino just for these damn little 5-second flashbacks. I think they're going to actually have more going on there.
Yeah, I see. I had just been thinking like we're leading up to some sort of flashback scene where you get de-aged Tamora Morrison as Jango Fett talking to deepfaked Daniel Logan as Boba Fett, and get a little father and son scene. But yeah, that would be really interesting. Like there's a lot of stuff going on with cloning in this time period. There's all that stuff that Dr. Pershing is doing, everything that's going on with Baby Yoda, and there were those things in season 2 that kind of looked like Snoke's in a jar. Something's going on there, and maybe Boba's gonna in the search for something that to sort of revitalize himself, he might stumble onto something that factors into the larger story. And there's even on the Bad Batch, right, the kind of the stinger, the coda for season 1 was Nala Se, I think, being taken to Mount Tantus, and that's there's a lot of room in there for some, if not a Kaminoan to be still around, but something that she left behind that could be picked up on, could be found for Boba, that also factors into whatever's going on with Baby Yoda and the Empire, maybe Thrawn, maybe Palpatine and everything going on Exegol. Like there's a lot here that could be picked up on, could be played with. And I think I hadn't considered the idea that he's an old clone, so he's going to start disintegrating or something like that. So that could be really interesting. I'm interested to see if they pick up on that and see where that goes.
We got 5 episodes. That could be like the stinger. If it goes to season 2, right? That could be like all of season 2 storyline. We might end off with like an after credit like little thing about that. But I mean, the majority of the story is shaping up like, okay, we got these huts here. What are we going to do with the huts? And I think that's the main story, obviously, right now that we know of. We've already gotten plenty of really cool things out of the story. We didn't really even talk about the action. I thought the action was just done so well. Like that whole train sequence was like, damn, this is what you would expect in a huge blockbuster movie, man. Like they just totally outdid themselves again with the swoop bikes. Oh man, seeing him teaching the Tuskens how to drive just had me dying. I was just, this is hilarious. They're jumping, they're falling, they're jumping, they're falling. They guy goes in reverse and things making all sorts of noises. It was so glorious.
Awesome.
This episode was funnier than what I thought it would be, with those people, with the Raiders trying to learn how to drive the speeder bikes. Like you mentioned in our group chat, Chris, you said this was very cinematic how it was shot. You're not wrong, because it looks like it was high budget, well done. It didn't look fake, like because so like some shows can like cut their budget back. Like we know, Ben and I are huge fans of the Arrow shows, Arrow and Flash. Some of the CGI can be kind of iffy, but this is like, no, we're gonna make this look good. And I was very impressed with the action and with the CGI. Again, the way they make this show look is amazing. Um, again, this is one of my favorite Mandoverse episodes thus far because of the action, the storytelling, just how it looks, and then you can definitely tell money was well spent, and they took the time to make this look really, really good, especially with the train chase.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen something that shot that well and look very convincing to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked terrific, and they did such a good job of capturing the feeling of speed.
Yes.
And that's something that I feel like a lot of shows struggle with is making you feel just how fast something is going. And I felt it in this episode. Like you could really feel just how fast the train was going, and it adds to the peril and to the drama of it all. And also just the other thing, Tem on those speeder bikes, man, looks like the coolest dude on earth. He's so laid back, so chill. He looks so cool and so at home and so confident. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Boba Fett right there.
You're not wrong. Now we talked about this a couple weeks ago. If we had to pick a ship or something to have in Star Wars, and I think we all said like the Millennium Falcon, maybe like a Star Destroyer or something. I do want a like speeder bike, swoop bike. I'm not gonna lie, like those things look dope.
Yeah.
Like let's be real here. Like if we can just take one, man, you couldn't tell me anything from that point on because I'd be just going anywhere and everywhere with it. They look so cool. I mean, we first saw that experience in Return of the Jedi and how cool it was, and even in that movie, it looks so dangerous because it was so fast and you had to be precise with it. Dominic, you make a great point. The speed in this episode, you have to be precise with those speeders because if you make one wrong move, you're done. So I just love how they portrayed that. And then even with the hyperspace engine or light speed engine on the train was dope, was well used. And that little robot, let's give a shout out to that little robot conductor because he was, conniving. He kind of reminded me from he reminded me of the Transformer robot in the first movie. Remember the little robot from the first Transformers movie?
Yeah.
He was like cloning the phone and the boombox.
Yeah.
It reminded me of him.
Yeah, and I love that when he was about to be caught, just jumped out the window.
He jumped out. That's what he's like, no, I'm good. You're not gonna get me.
Does like a Grievous move. It just scurries off like a spider.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like we're going to see that robot again. I feel like there's something that we do. That robot has to be there for a reason. Like, not kidding. He has to be an important part of the story because there's no way he just gets thrown out for nothing. Like, that little some bitch was conniving. That's all I gotta say.
Another really good Star Wars-ism, as I call it, is like one of the weird things that happens that only happens in Star Wars, like a droid jumping out of a window or a lizard going up somebody's nose to give them hallucinations. Is seeing one of those, like, they were just hanging out at the Tusken Raider camp, and like seeing like one of those wart things that was hanging out of Jabba's palace just jump out of the sand randomly, and then they just take a sniper and they just shoot it,
about that.
and then the dogs just go again. I'm like, that's so Star Wars right there.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Out of nowhere, it just happens.
Yeah, well, and another thing that was so Star Wars when Boba and Fennec throw the assassin guy into the Rancor pit, and you go through all the motions of the Rancor coming out, and he's just not there, and you get that shot of just like a mouse popping out from behind a little stone there. It's just so good.
Oh man, so we very much enjoyed this episode. We're gonna give it a score out of 10. To just kind of summarize what we feel about this episode, I'm going to throw it off to our guest, Dominic.
I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I thought the stuff in the desert was sort of a 10 out of 10, and the stuff in Mos Espa was somewhere in the range of an 8 out of 10. My one criticism of the stuff in Mos Espa is that we kind of, it sort of felt like we were going through very similar motions to what we went through last week. And even down to like the locations, like we went from Jabba's palace to Garsa's cantina there. We're just kind of and still walking down that one street that they built as the set there. So I feel like we need just a little bit more going on in Mos Espa, but I think the introduction of Black Chrysanthemum and the Hutts bodes well for that. So, yeah, I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Amazing, amazing stuff in the desert. Really, really loved it. That's the sort of stuff I want to see from Star Wars. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this all goes next week.
Yeah, so I have a lot. I'll go next. I have a lot of like fun moments with this episode where I was basically borderline cheering, like, yeah, I wanted to see this in Star Wars for 20 something years, or oh, I wanted to see a comic book character for the longest time show up. So that stuff, it's like, okay, that gets me hyped up in the moment, and that's really surface level kind of stuff for the most part. But then when I get into the nitty gritty of it, the fact that we were talking about Dominic, you're bringing up great points about, hey, his father, the lineage, and how he has to like kind of not forget his father, but kind of move on and forge his own self. I love the fact, and I didn't mention this yet, of just the entire process of Boba's life right now. It's like, and you see this in the vision too. It's like, okay, he's being birthed in the ocean, and he's being rebirthed in the sand. I just love that kind of imagery that they are showing, and how we see that crossover. It's just like so much more epic for this character. Again, that was a no-name, mysterious character that had 5 lines of dialogue. They are doing complete opposite work with him right now. The fact that this episode has fantastic action. Dominic, I was looking for the best way to explain it. I think you explained it so well with the speed and everything going on there to make that really kinetic and really energetic and really on the edge of your seat kind of moments that we would see in a movie. So, you know what? I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 as well. I was going to give it 8.5, but the discussion kind of pushed up my thoughts. Going to give it a 9 out of 10. Last week was an 8 out of 10. I'm going to throw it over to Milton.
Yeah, I thought the biggest thing I'm taking away from this episode is that this episode is very rewatchable. It's a very rewatchable episode. And I think, I think both Dominic and I said it, if this was part of the premiere last week, this be probably a perfect way to start the show. And I mean, I'm actually looking forward to talking to my dad about this because he hasn't seen this yet. And I think I might have to try to watch the first 2 episodes with him to see what he thinks. And he loves Star Wars just like I do, especially original trilogy fan. So I think the thing about this episode is that it's very rewatchable. It strengthens the first episode significantly. I love the world building of the Tusken Raiders. I love we got to see more of what Boba's trying to figure out among himself. I just love seeing that these flashbacks are paying off for something that will probably have impact in the future. I love that. The visuals, the aesthetics. We haven't even talked about the music yet at all. Yeah. And the music's always good. The Hutts, Black Chrysanthemum, all that was fire. Again, I have to agree with Dominic. I think the current storyline is still weak for me. I am hoping that that's starting to pick up in the next 2 to 3 episodes. Because there's only 7 episodes for this series, so they need to start getting that ball rolling. Again, we're seeing the same places in the present day. They need to switch it up a little bit, but 9 out of 10, it's really not a bad episode. It's one of the best episodes I've seen in Mandoverse thus far. So 9 out of 10. I trust these guys that are creating this product. I'm just putting my faith in them that they're going to continue to push the story forward.
Yep, and I almost forgot, but luckily I'm looking at the chat. I'm going to talk about Ben. He's in Hawaii, but he did leave us a couple chat comments. So he's saying, aloha from Hawaii, sitting here on the beach with some drinks from a cantina. Boba, nice. Episode 2 was awesome. The story, the action, the character enhancement of Boba and Tuskens, loved it. This is the first time I've felt this was Star Wars in all the Disney era, minus the Luke appearance. By far the best on-screen Star Wars we've had, in my honest opinion. So it looks like he liked the episode just a little bit there. So thanks for sharing your thoughts. But yeah, it definitely had some of those like trademark Star Wars moments that are just like, this only happens in Star Wars. We get this kind of cinematic view, this hero's tale of just, going against all odds and turning his persona into something good. The last thing I want to mention about this episode before we move on to the news is the ending of the episode. I thought the ending was so strong. And the fact that they're turning Tamora Morrison's culture and they're kind of infusing it into Star Wars itself with the Tuskens and with his Maori background and how he's doing this Haka dance, which is like reminiscent of like what the Indians, the Native Americans would do with these different kind of tribal dances and stuff like that. I thought that was beautiful, and it didn't dawn on me that that was his like cultural stance until somebody mentioned it in a
Right.
Facebook group, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like they went full circle on this.
I believe is he from New Zealand or Australia? It's one of the two.
New
Tamara
Zealand.
Moore's. Okay, so that's very much present in that culture. Because I don't know if Dominic, have you seen the show Spartacus?
No, I
Uh,
haven't.
okay, so a lot of those actors are from like Australia and New Zealand, and they used a lot of like those chants and haka dances and like the Spartan like chants and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So I love, like you mentioned, Chris, that they're bringing some of that culture from Tamara Morrison into Star Wars, and it's a good fit for the Tusken Raiders because they're very much our warrior type creatures who are just a primitive, but also got a rich history that we still don't know much about yet.
Yeah, they did such a good job in this episode of infusing the Tuscans with all sorts of indigenous cultures
Yeah.
and building up a unique identity for them that's really based in cultures and history here on Earth. That yeah, and the fact that Tem as a Maori man is leading this show, it just adds so much more to everything that's going on. Like that whole speech that he gives the Pikes, like, is powerful. Those are powerful words in and of themselves, but it's extra powerful coming out of his mouth, given his background and what his people and indigenous peoples all over the world
Right.
have suffered over the centuries. To hear that coming from him made a good scene incredible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Ben, I didn't see this message. He says top 3 in Disney era Star Wars. This was a 9 out of 10 easily. Have a great night, guys. Back to the beach. See you next week. So there you go.
Appreciate it, Ben. Keep loving on those beaches, man.
That's the best way to end an email or a message. Just back to the beach. I'm out.
But we are not done here. We are gonna just talk a little bit. We don't have much news going on. It was New Year's and Christmas, so a lot of these news outlets and different things, well deserved. We're taking some vacation time off. I do want to shout out, as I always do every week, we had this week's releases. As I pull up the list here. I got to pull up in Facebook. I can do this off the top of my head because I know we got some High Republic content out this week, and we had Fallen Star, which is I haven't finished yet. I'm only like 5 chapters in, but as let's see, as we were mentioning earlier today, earlier on the episode, Dominic was mentioning, hey, it's worth reading most of the stuff before you get into it, and I completely agree because I'm already having that experience. The more you know, the more it reinforces the idea of like this High Republic initiative is something that is so, it must be so hard to keep this content like in a chronological order where it's all coming out at the right precise time to kind of give feedback into another story. It's not necessary that you read everything. Like there are certain people that I know that just read the books, the Del Rey adult books, and they're going to get that full story. The major beats are in those novels. But if you want to go into the young reader novels, the young adult novels, the comics, the audio dramas, it's going to even strengthen it even more. So we have that. But there was something else that happened this week. This was rather interesting. So Mission to Disaster, which is the young reader novel, the junior novel, middle grade novel, however you want to explain it, is written by Justina Ireland. And this was supposed to come out originally the same day as Fallen Star. Well, unfortunately, it got delayed because of the shipping crisis to February. And then recently got pushed back another month to March. Well, it's funny because I was on Amazon like a day before. Somebody tipped me off like, hey, you could get the ebook on the day it comes out. I'm like, really? It's not delayed till March? So then I sent out a tweet to one of the publicity people, and they're like, oh, that shouldn't be. We have to change that. And then I woke up on the day it came out, and it was like, you could buy this now. It was no more pre-order. It was like, you could buy it right now. I was like, I'm buying this now. So I bought it, and I turned off the Wi-Fi in case they would somehow take it back from me. So
That's too funny.
on the tablet that I have it on. So, and then it turned out like, oh no, you can get the ebook and the audiobook now. So I was like, all right, cool. They're not going to take it back from me. so that was an interesting idea because it's like, man, this really sucks because you want to read this stuff in the chronological order. So when something that's out of our hands with the shipping crisis happens, it's like, it's going to throw the whole initiative kind of out of sync. You know what I mean? So at least they're able to just kind of keep that. I don't know if it was rather an error or they wanted it to be that. I don't know what happened, but it was like, So anyway, both those stories are out. They start off Phase 1, Wave 3, which is the final wave before we get to Phase 2, which we're going to talk about in a minute. We also had Dr. Aphra issue number 17. Connects into something with the Crimson Dawn as well, with that storyline. Our favorite archaeologist going around trying to get some Ascendant artifacts, which are like a Sith-like culture, lots of power, a new character introduced. So go check that out. I have my review of that. I also reviewed Mission to Disaster, so Fallen Star review will be up in a couple days, hopefully. And let's talk about it. So the High Republic Phase 2 is announced for October. And what's interesting about the High Republic Phase 2 is they're actually going back 150 years from the Great Disaster, meaning we are going to be now 350 years before the events of A New Hope, meaning they are basically pulling a George Lucas, giving us the original trilogy, going back, doing a prequel trilogy, and then we'll get the sequel trilogy in Phase 3. So what's your reaction, Dominic, as you're reading currently through all the High Republic stuff about like, oh, how do you feel about like maybe leaving our characters be where they are, then going back and maybe finding out a bunch of new characters?
Yeah, like I'm sort of conflicted about it, because on the one hand, like every fiber of my being just is saying, no, just go forward with the story, continue the story of Avar Kriss and Stellan Gios and Elzar Mann and all these cool characters that we've been introduced to. But at the same time, I feel like the High Republic authors have earned my trust. It's like Milton was saying about, Dave and John and Robert on the TV side. Justine Ireland, Charles Soule, Claudia Gray, Cavan Scott, Daniel Jose Older. They've earned my trust that I'm willing to follow them wherever they're ready, wherever they want to take this story. Because I kind of fell off the wagon with the High Republic stuff for a little bit there. It wasn't because I wasn't enjoying it or I didn't think it was good. I was just focused on other things. And now as I've been jumping back into it, I'm being reminded of why I liked it in the first place so much. And I'm like, you guys clearly have a plan. You have a vision that you're executing here with these different phases. So yeah. Show me more of your vision. Show me where the story goes, and we'll get back. I'm sure like you said, we'll get back to these characters that we've been following in Phase 1 eventually. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So I'm sure I'll miss them for a while, even though there'll be cool new characters to take their place in the High Republic storytelling. But that'll just make the return to them in 2023 or 2024 all the sweeter. And the other thing that's kind of interesting about this that I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out on the kind of multimedia front is, okay, High Republic Phase 2 is taking place in the past, and it's beginning in October of this year. That means it's probably going to run through most of next year. Mm-hmm. And so we won't be getting to Phase 3 until probably 2024. And by that time, we'll probably, at the very least, be getting ready for Season 1 of The Acolyte, which is set at the end of the High Republic, if not having already seen Season 1 of The Acolyte. And the game might be ready by around that time, too. So we might be having the High Republic might be having a real moment of all of these stories coming together at the same time. And there could be some really interesting potential there for like a really multimedia experience with the publishing side, with the stuff on TV, with the game. And, there are lots of rumblings out there that there's more to come from the High Republic era, whether it's an animated series or a live action movie. Again, that stuff would be coming out late 2023, early 2024, all in that same time period. So it could be a real boon for the High Republic right in that right around the time that Phase 3 is beginning. And if they can sort of keep that momentum going through all those projects, that might be something on a scale of which in Star Wars that we've never seen before. If everything can be firing all at the same time, all moving in the same direction, and all telling a story that is at the very least related and interconnected in some ways, if not all the same story, it could be something really special and really unique and really amazing. So I'm really fascinated to see how all of this comes together as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so excited to see what the heck spurs the moment where we go back 150 years. Like
Yeah.
what you know, they keep teasing the fallen star with like all these things on Star Wars, the social media, like who's gonna survive? Like they're literally like, okay, there's gonna be people dead by the end of this book. So
Hmm.
so what's gonna spur that moment where it's like, okay, we have to stop this story to go back in time? Like are like all the characters basically just killed off, and it's like, all right, well, let's see what happened to get I don't know. And then maybe like when they go back to like the phase 3, maybe they'll do like new characters like 150 years closer to the Phantom Menace, and at that point then they're gonna end up being with the Acolyte at the end of the High Republic and all this kind of stuff there. One thing's for certain: phase 2, all the stories will be, or wave 3 of phase 1 will, all the stories will be out by February. By February, at the end of February, you'll have the complete story of phase 1 done. Everything will be out, supposedly. Now, I
Wow.
looked into this earlier today or yesterday about what the heck is going. You mentioned the manga, Edge of
Mm.
Balance. Supposedly, the second volume's coming out this month. I'm still trying to figure out how the heck I get my hands on it because apparently it's saying Amazon's in May. So I got to reach out to some people and be like, all right, what the hell is going
What's
on
going
there?
on? Yeah. What is this?
So some minor little things, but it's like, huh, we're gonna see a Yoda, a young, spry, 550-year-old Yoda jumping around with maybe some jet black hair or something. That's what I'm
Yeah.
interested in.
That's too funny.
I want to see Yoda with his leather jacket just
Yeah,
disobeying the council and, doing all the things that we see Anakin do later in life. And so when Yoda sees Anakin doing that stuff, he's like,
yeah.
remember those days? I do. Yes, go about it, Skywalker. I did this once I did myself. Yes, go. Have fun.
But another thing I was thinking about, a theory I was thinking about is, a lot of the High Republic was hyped up in the current line of publishing right before it launched. Like I think there was a couple books. I know Kevin Scott had laid some seeds in the audio drama of Count Dooku. Dooku Lost, and you had a lot of Charles Soule's comics were like High Republic this, High Republic that. I'm wondering if we're gonna get like some Old Republic teases in that earlier part of the High Republic, because we keep hearing these rumors about, oh, we know we're getting a Old Republic remake. We hear rumblings about a movie. What if phase 2 is like a big platform to be like, hey, remember this Sith War? And they've already been doing this in the High Republic itself. They mentioned like the Great Sith War or something a few times. But what happens if they actually start like name dropping like an era name and be like, the Old Republic this, the Old Republic that? And if they start doing that, I'm like, okay, we know we're getting that very, very soon, because that's what happened with the original High Republic. So that could be like an avenue to start like, and I'm just excited because it's like, okay, 150 years is a substantial amount of time. So they're going to have to kind of come up with new concept designs again, come up with new technology, new ships that are even older than before. So I like how we're kind of gradually going back in time, back in time, back in time. And maybe the Old Republic in canon starts 500 years before phase 2 or something like that. So we're getting that gradual decline, which is pretty cool in my eyes.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, look, if they start tying in Old Republic characters, and there is a lot of them I know from the video games. I can't reference them all, but if they start referencing characters that we're familiar with, like was it Darth? Is it Darth Malgus? Is he one
Mm-hmm.
of the? Yeah. If they start like referencing him at one point, or even like Bane or anything like that,
Yeah.
I'd be like, all right, come. You know me at that point, Chris. I'm invested.
Ha!
Again, I haven't read the High Republic yet. I plan to eventually, and I'll probably have to talk to you about where should I start with that. But I think if they tie it all to where it's obviously marketing, because with the remake of the game, like you mentioned, how close it is to the Old Republic timeline, and how they can meld it all together into one linear story. I mean, if they do it right, they can get an audience there for sure. Clearly, you guys are talking about it. Other people that I know like the books and the comics. So it's potential to make this thing just as big as the original stories that we know of currently with the 3 sequel or three trilogy. So I'm excited for what this could potentially be, because at first I was not into the High Republic at all. I thought it was kind of gimmicky. But I think, as you've spoken about it, Chris, you're starting to convince me to get into this more. I feel like there's a lot of potential now with the Acolyte coming out too. I think
Mm-hmm.
that could really sway my thoughts on, okay, I need to get into this now. This could really tie into things that I've probably heard about, I just didn't pay attention to. So it sounds interesting. I just need to actually start reading it.
Yeah, yeah. And what makes this project even more confidence from Lucasfilm is the fact that they hired 4 new authors to be a big part of the original 5 author architects. So we got new authors. We got Zoraida Cordova. We have George Mann, Tessa Gratton, and Lydia Kang. So Zoraida Cordova, she's written Crash of Fate and some short stories in Star Wars. George Mann does some awesome work with some of these like legends-esque books where it's like myths and fables and Sith legends, some really cool story books with some artwork by Grant Griffin. And then Tessa Gratton, I believe, has done a short story. Either her or Lydia Kang was the one that did the short story in A Certain Point of View. So pretty much all these people have dipped their toes into Star Wars for the most part. So again, if they hired these other actors as that, or these other authors, like, okay, we're gonna get even more content at a more rapid pace because now we have more people working on this thing.
Yeah, well, you mentioned like Claudia Gray and Charles Soule. I mean, Charles Soule with the comics, he can do no wrong. I mean, people love his work.
Yeah.
And then Claudia Gray's written some of the best Star Wars novels out there over the new Disney Star Wars era. She's done a really good job. Like, Lost Stars, that Claudia Gray.
Yeah.
Like,
so good.
I such a good book. And I mean, everyone loves her now. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not shocked. But no one has asked Chuck Wendig to come back to write one of these books. Just saying.
Oh, there's a little bit of drama with him, with some stuff with Twitter or something, and he's been like, I don't think he wants to do Star Wars anything anymore after that.
Just saying, no, I mean, because he's a better writer than me, obviously. I'm not hating on the guy, but the Empire End series, Aftermath wasn't that well received. It got better as he wrote the books.
Yeah.
But they were struggles, especially that first one. That one was super hyped up. I remember talking about Aftermath. That book's gonna tell the story of post Return of the Jedi. It is what it is.
Yeah, they should have started that trilogy with the second one.
Yeah, you ain't wrong. You're not wrong.
And our last story for this week is some updates on the video game. So Jeff Grubb, who's a gaming insider, he works for Game Rant. He does like a little YouTube or podcast show, and it's called Grub Snacks. On the latest episode, he's suggesting a Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to be revealed ahead of E3. We just got news that E3 got canceled again. They claim it's COVID, but that's obviously a very likely scenario. But there's also been a lot of problems in general, even before COVID happened, that they were like, do we even need an E3 anymore? Because now Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo do their own thing anyway outside of E3. So I think E3 is just dead, but that's a conversation for a whole another day. But the main thing is before E3, and E3 is in June, and there's kind of a small event that might be happening maybe 3 weeks or so before that. Can't put my finger on exactly what that event is, but I think I might be seeing a guy named Dominic Jones there at some point.
Yeah, so. It sounds. I think there's some event where we'll be celebrating something, but can't put my finger on it. Something about wars in the stars and a celebration of them, perhaps in a city like Anaheim.
Yeah. So I know people are like, oh, May the 4th. I'm like, oh, that's actually very likely. But I was like, I'd rather them just hold this for the celebration, because I'll tell you, man, I don't know if you're there for that panel, because they had that crazy like panel app reservation thing. And I was in the gaming one. I know you guys had the booth, so you were busy with that. But I was in that audience when they revealed Jedi Fallen Order, and I just about lost my mind. Yeah. Because I was like, dude. And I think I had my lightsaber because I was cosplaying as some version of Luke, as I often do when I go to these conventions. So I was like, yeah, lightsaber in the air, watching the trailer, like, yeah, let's go. Because it was like the first Star Wars like non-Battlefront game that was going to be a single player narrative driven game, and there was Inquisitors and all this sorts of stuff with a Jedi Padawan that was, Left 4 Dead on this junk planet, and it was just felt so epic. So it only makes sense to reveal the second game in this series at the same kind of way, the same kind of public outcry, surviving through COVID for 2-3 years and finally together as a big group of fans going crazy over this stuff. And that would be such a triumphant moment to reveal this thing there and say it's coming out in 2023 or 2022, because they did say in this report, he says it's likely to come out in 2022, but also likely to get pushed to 2023. So this could be a busy year for Star Wars gaming, because if we're looking at our docket right now, we have the Star Wars mobile game Hunters that's being coming out pretty much anytime, it seems like. You know how those app games are, they just kind of release them, say it's out. And then we have Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Now today I heard a rumor that it's going to be coming out either April or May. Now they say sometime in spring, so that would track in that trail that they released back in the summertime. So yeah, we're still waiting on Lego Star Wars. So there's a possibility we might get Lego Star Wars sometime in the spring, and then come back in October when the fever pitch for Star Wars is really high, when whatever series is out at the time, probably Mando Season 3, and then we get Jedi Fallen Order 2 to come out. Because if you're looking at general sequels and when they usually come out in the video game industry, usually 3 years is plenty of time, although we're also working through COVID, so all these game developers are mostly working at home. Things are getting a lot more streamlined, I'm sure, with how they work on this stuff. It helps that they already done the engine for the game, since they already did the first game, so they kind of just, I guess, I don't know how games work, but I'm sure it's a little bit easier to make a sequel than to build the whole game from scratch again. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we might be seeing Jedi Fallen Order as a big release this year. So let's hope.
Yeah. Yeah, a reveal at Celebration, like you were saying, would be amazing. Whenever they can drop an announcement like that, and especially if they have like a teaser trailer or something to go with it, whenever they can do that at an event with thousands and thousands of people screaming and cheering, I think that's the way to do it. Yeah, I didn't get to go to the Fallen Order panel at Celebration Chicago, but I remember we were doing our daily podcasts from the booth, and that day you came by in time to be on the podcast that day to give us that report from that panel. And Chris, man, you were so excited. We could just feel the hype. It just coming through. Like we were in the same space. We could just feel it radiating off you, and you go back and listen to that episode. You can hear it in your voice. It was a good day. It was a good day in a series of 5 good days.
Oh man, yeah, Milton, next Celebration, you, Ben, we're all gonna meet somewhere. I'm hoping, like, come on, put it in New York City, like it's right there. You got the new Javits.
Just put it in Philadelphia. That's my state, man. Come on, you already know. I'll put it in Philly. I'll be there. Philly or Pittsburgh.
The convention center of Philly is big. Yeah, it's big enough for Philly convention.
I was in Philadelphia in September for an Eagles game, and I stayed right near the convention center. Mm-hmm. It's right downtown. So, or put it in Pittsburgh. I'm going to Pittsburgh in 2 weeks for some work stuff. So I know Pittsburgh, I know Philadelphia, or hell, put it in Baltimore. I got family in Baltimore too. So it don't matter. Yeah. Bring it on to the East Coast where I live at.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
Yeah. East Coast in general.
I mean,
we got to get
it. Listen, they can put it in Jersey, Newark, or wherever. No. Don't put it in Camden. Don't put it in Camden, because Camden's off the chain. But they can put it in Jersey where you live, Chris.
Yeah, we gotta be due for an East Coast celebration at some point. And look, I love Disney World and everything, but let's not go back to Orlando. Let's do it somewhere else. Let's find somewhere cool. That was something that was really fun about Celebration Chicago, was that like Celebration was done and then you were in Chicago. Like it's those the Disney cities like Orlando and Anaheim. They're great fun, and convention ends and you go to Disneyland or you go to Disney World, and that's a good time. But there's really not a lot else outside of the theme parks. But putting it in, like when you go to New York Comic Con, like you leave at the end of the day, and then you're just in New York City. You're in Manhattan, and you have all the fun that you can have in Manhattan, in addition to Comic Con. So let's keep this thing moving around. Let's not just leave it in. Let's not just have it bounce between Anaheim and Orlando.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I know I have to come back. This is like the longest circle back in the history of the podcast, but I was like, oh yeah, let's talk about Sam Witwer. I was like, man, just put Sam Witwer in this game. Fallen Order 2. Make him the Inquisitor that is going after Cal. Right? Just do it. That would be perfect. You got it right there. Have some cool storyline where acknowledge that he was Darth Vader's apprentice. Have that legend story kind of like Milton was saying, kind of exist in canon a little bit more.
All you got to do is tweak it up. The material's there. You can tweak it. Like, look at the alternate endings for those games and how he tries to kill the Emperor, but then he turns him into a cyborg. You know, like you can take that character and make it work. Like it's all there. That's why, again, that's why I get so upset with how they say that they don't have the material to make this work. Yes, you do. Like, tweak the stories. That's all you got to do. It's there every time. I do this every podcast because it's so true.
Oh man, but oh man, we had a great time talking Boba Fett, talking some Star Wars, some celebration, some video games, some books, comics. It's been a great night, and once again, I want to thank Dominic for coming on by. Go ahead, it's your spotlight, man. Tell us about the Star Wars Underworld. Tell us about the podcast, everything you've been up to, and where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So we're doing Star Wars Underworld podcast. We record those every Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we record them on YouTube now, so you can actually watch the video, watch the podcast play out. And then they're still available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everything like that after the fact. And right now we're doing Book of Boba Fett breakdowns every week, in addition to our news coverage. And we're going to keep rolling with that and do breakdowns of Bad Batch and Kenobi and Andor and Mando and everything else that's coming out. So come on over for more Star Wars talk. And we have Chris on a lot. He comes in as our senior tie-in materials correspondent to let us know about what's going on with the books and the comics and especially the video games. And so, Chris, we got to get you back on the show soon. And Milton, I want to have you on the show too.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. You have to send me a link to the channel. I'll subscribe to it. I'll check it out.
For sure. And that goes for everybody out there. Subscribe, because they also have some really funny breakout content. There was something where somebody auto-tuned or attempted to auto-tune Dominic with some kind of song that he did involving the Rise of Skywalker.
I wrote a parody of the 12 Days of Christmas, but made it about the Rise of Skywalker, and I just sang it on an episode. And then somebody who listens to the show took the audio and created like a video version of the song, and they were going to auto-tune me, and they got about 4 days into the song before auto-tune went, "No, just stop. We can't help this guy. It's so even we can only go this far." But yeah, that you can watch the the edited version of the 12 Days of Christmas sans auto-tune on our YouTube channel as well.
All right. And where can people find you on Twitter?
Oh, and I'm on Twitter at DominicJ25, and on Instagram as well at DominicJ25. Prefer Instagram. Post more over there, although I don't post a whole lot on either these days.
there you go. And Milton, where can people find you, and what can you be tweeting about? I know your team is just barely getting the playoffs, right?
Oh no, we clinched. We're in the playoffs. We're just buying our time before we started. No, so people can find me at Milton Weber 7 on Twitter. Again, it's Milton Weber and the number 7. Usually I post about sports stuff, or just, make obnoxious comments about how the world's crazy half the time. So, but nah, man, I love that people listen to us. They watch our show. It's very much appreciated. Come check us out every Friday. We enjoy the conversation with you guys. So thank you so much for checking out the show.
Oh, heck yeah, definitely. Make sure you go ahead, share this to all your friends, family that like Star Wars. We want to try to get more of the conversation. We definitely had a great conversation tonight. All of our chat people were very active. We had Tim Sheets, we had Chris in there, and we had Ben, of course. We had Aaron. So come on by every Friday around 9 o'clock Eastern, and we are chatting Star Wars, especially Book of Boba Fett every week. As far as content on the channel this week, I put out a video about a certain Wookiee named Black Chrysanthemum that is getting a cool amount of traction for our channel. So go ahead, share that video to friends that are sure who the heck that guy is. And hopefully I did a good enough job of explaining who he is. And I have that content with the reviews coming out like crazy with all the High Republic stuff. I have a whole catch-up video on what was announced the couple days ago at the live stream. So you can check all that out. And of course, do subscribe to the channel and go check out our Teespring store. Just search Outer Rim Transmission to get our t-shirts there. And you can go ahead and listen to us on Spotify, listen to us on Apple Music, on all those places, Google Music. And if you're listening on podcast form, go ahead and check us out live so you guys can get interactive with us in the chat. So that is going to do it for Dominic, for Milton, for I. Thank you so much for watching. This was Outer Rim Transmission number 40, End Transmission.